Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AM Impact on Your Health. AM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AM Impact on Your Health is heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today, well, our surprise guest has surprised me. Of course, we were lucky enough to get a hold of Dr. Oliver Caminos last week, who scheduled himself this morning and found out he was in conflict in New York City with a meeting. I talked to him just briefly a while ago, and he's heading on in, so we're going to take it over. Plenty on my plate to share with you. I want to talk to you about something that's working really well here in the office. You heard me mention it before, but I'll go into some great length talking about something that I now refer to as natural chelation. As much as chelation has played a role in my practice for these many years, it's nice to see that it can be done natural. Now look, I have plenty more to talk to you about too. Besides that, however, you may have something on your plate to share with us. And you should know that you can come on in here at any moment and set the agenda as you see it, just by dialing us up at the number 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. I'll listen for the knock on the door, and I will let you in the store. Okay, so let's see how the week is going to shape up. Yes, we're switching some gears today, opening up to you, and I will describe in detail this thing called natural chelation. It's becoming a big hit around here, and by the way, it's making the circuit with my alternative medical doctor colleague friends who are just finding out about it too. On Wednesday, one of the top docs is going to be here. He certainly is a top doc when it comes to Lyme's disease. You don't want to miss the show we do with Dr. David Minkoff. His practice is in Clearwater, Florida, and it deals almost exclusively with Lyme's disease. A very rigorous, sort of a boot camp kind of a program. I'll let him describe it in only the way he can. You'll get the impression that he's not playing around down there, and he's winning the majority of the time. Let's find out what the magic is from Dr. Minkoff, who I refer to as the gunslinger. I think you'll find out why when we get with him on Wednesday. Then as we move into next week, of course, next week is a repeat eye program and cataract clinic. We do one a month. For those of you, and by the way, there's only 2 more programs left. This one and the month of July, 2 programs where the introductory pricing that we first offered will be in operation. After that, as we move into August, we will be suspending those prices. And if you think you want to be involved and you'd like to do so with a lot less of an expense, make sure you contact us at the Pittsburgh Eye Protocol. That number is 724-993-0500, and find out from Sister Sarah about the details for this month's eye program, which will be held the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And then for those of you who want to extend it out to July, the July program will be 20, 21, 22, and 23. More on that when we return. Now, we do have a knock on the door. Come on in the store. Hello and welcome aboard. What's on your mind? Go right ahead.
Yes, Dr. Courtney.
Yes.
I have a question about my mother.
Okay.
Last month, she was diagnosed with a cancerous tumor in her right lung. And she's 90 years old, and she's got this cough and with phlegm.
Sure.
Sometimes there's a little bit of blood in the phlegm, you know. And my question is, where's the phlegm coming from? The tumor, and what can be done about the phlegm and the cough?
Well, this is, the parts of the human anatomy that are less forgiving than other areas. I'd say the number one least forgiving area to develop any mass at all would be the brain. And I think that the number two literally becomes the lung. The only reason that the lung, because there's so much space there, it's not a space issue, it's that many of these tumors are mucin producing. They literally produce a massive amounts of fluid and mucin, and that accumulates to the point where it absolutely can affect the breathing. At least this point, from what I'm gathering from you, is your mom's having a cough, but she's able to clear these secretions, or does she not?
Yes, it's to clear the secretions.
Okay, so to the extent, I'll tell you that there are much more serious conditions where the secretions can't be cleared, where the individual literally has so much difficulty breathing, almost drowning in their own mucin-producing substances. So in the case of your mom, it doesn't appear as though it is that fluid producing to the extent that she won't be able to clear those fluids, at least for now. This is a matter of great concern, of course, for the entire family and for your mom, who at age 90 doesn't need to be harassed and saddled with this kind of a daily symptom, difficulty in breathing, almost in some cases panicked breathing. And your mom isn't in that situation, is she?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. So, and by the way, once this usually gets established as a pattern, it can usually does stay as a pattern. Those that are predisposed to making massive amounts of fluid usually do so right from the beginning, right from the get-go, and we know we are up against pretty difficult circumstances. And the other turns out to be true too. If they're not fluid producing to a large extent, they usually demonstrate that from the beginning of their presentation and remain that way. So to the extent that your mom is able to clear those fluids now with coughing, is actually in a much better place than she would be if she produced massive amounts of fluid and couldn't clear them. That pattern usually remains consistent, at least in the highest percentage of cases, and I'll keep my fingers crossed for your mom.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Okay. There's not too much that can be done then as far as the phlegm that comes up.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to, the tumor needs to be dealt with so that it can't manufacture these erroneous fluids to the level they're being manufactured. Now, at age 90, what is going to be done? Is she going to pursue some conventional chemotherapy? I hope not.
No, absolutely not.
I think that cooler minds here prevail, and this woman does not need to be traumatized with the devastation of chemotherapies at this age. However, there's so many other therapies that are not invasive or not toxic, not chemotoxic, that it is still possible to eradicate those tumors. I hope we could maybe discuss what to do about that and be able to assist her at the age of 90. Who cares? I mean,
yeah.
So that those are all possibilities too. So it seems as though you're using your head, and she is too, about avoiding this chemotherapeutic insult, which would be a major insult to a 90-year-old female. But plenty of other non-toxic approaches to take, and hopefully we can talk about them soon. Come on in.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Brain, least forgiving. Lung, next least forgiving. And then finally, let's say liver after that. Those three. The brain. Least of all, the brain. No doubt about it. Okay. Let's see. We talked about the up-and-coming eye protocols that we're going to be having here in the month of June and July. I will send you to our website at pittsburghiprotocol.com, pittsburghiprotocol.com. You can read about our eye programs there. We do link on to the site of Dr. Edward Condrat. His site is referred to as Healing the Eye and Wellness Center, now located in Fort Myers, Florida. And we are his northern affiliate, so that, you can be treated by the great one down there in Fort Myers, or you can do it locally up here in western Pennsylvania. Ed Condrat, after all, a world-renowned ophthalmologist, is a Pittsburgh physician, born and raised western Pennsylvania guy. It all started here with him, and then it had a brief stint in Phoenix, Arizona, where he put together these non-toxic, non-surgical, non-invasive approaches to treating eye diseases. The first home runs that were hit and remain this way for a lot of years now had to deal with the retinal diseases that for sure weren't able to be dealt with effectively in the conventional medical community. Pretty much, if you've got MACD or glaucoma or diabetic retinopathy, there's not much to be done for you other than observing how quickly you slide over a hill. Pretty rough to take if you're one of those patients, but to think that can be turned around through a 3-day program and get you started on your way to reversing what has been lost has been a real pleasure for me since I've connected with Dr. Condrat. And since July of 2013, we are the northern affiliate that conducts these programs on a monthly basis. And as we say, in the month of June, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, we'll be here. Now, we've combined them starting this month. There's not just the retinal programs any longer. We have made a major inroad into the treatment of cataracts. And I know many of you are here. We're here when we had our first seminar. And what we thought could and should happen certainly has been demonstrated to correct the cataracts in a number of patients who were in our first group. And we're looking forward to having the second and the third and the fourth. I believe there's no reason to think that these up-and-coming groups who have cataracts are going to be any different in terms of their responses than the ones that were involved in round one. And of course, I will keep you apprised of how well they are doing as we present each and every program. And next week will be the opportunity for me to do that. I'd get a copy of Lifestyle Medicine Journal. It is the Journal of Lifestyle Medicine. I believe Sven refers to it. We have an article in the spring edition referred to as the cataract cure. And if that hasn't really turned out to be exactly what we're seeing here, it maybe is much a surprise that we did so well with our first round of patients with cataracts. But I've come to, I believe, expect that which was initially a surprise, no longer a surprise to me. A free seminar on cataracts, as if we haven't spoken enough about them already, but there are plenty of you who are calling in and want to find out more about this, and we have a free seminar we're going to be giving at the Strabane Trails Village. Now, if you're located in the South Hills or in the Washington County area, North Strabane is a township just below us here in Peters Township, where my office is located. Anyway, we're going to be on June 30th at Strabane Trails Village. If you want to find out how to get steered into it to learn more about cataracts, it's a completely free presentation. We'll be there at 2:30. So give us a call here at Pittsburgh Eye Protocol. That number, once again, is 724-993-0500. That's 724-993-0500. Okay, let's do this. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I thought it would be time to maybe go into some great length about this thing that has emerged and has been an integral piece of, by the way, the success of the cataracts, I think, has to do with this use of natural chelation. Going to be talking about that when we return. You can now take care of your heavy metals without the burden of those toxic substances that we have used for so long. Anyway, you'll find out what I mean in just a moment. Be right back. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. We're here today, with you today on a Monday morning version of the show. We hopefully, by the way, you had a wonderful weekend. I know that myself and my family absolutely did. Here we're setting off for a week of adventure. Today, I'm going to be talking about a subject that I've introduced briefly before. I want to expound upon it, having an opportunity sort of caught by surprise by Dr. Oliver Caminos having to go to a meeting this morning, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's the time to unveil this topic of natural chelation, and we'll be doing so in the next few minutes or so. I want to also encourage you at any time now, you can call up and set the agenda as you see it. You can ask a question or to make a comment. The number to do that, as you should know by now, is to call us up at 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. I'll listen for that knock on the door, and I will let you in the store. Now, probably should set the stage with talking about the mindset of the alternative medical community. I don't know how many different ways it is now phrased. We found out last week that functional medicine more than likely is another moniker that can be used to describe individuals that work on this side of the street, if you know what I mean. Integrative medicine, I've used that term myself. Anyway, I believe there's a group of enlightened doctors throughout the entire country, and for that matter the world, that appreciates the role that heavy metal toxicity plays in human disease and suffering. And I'd have to say that very few to none of the conventionally trained doctors even pay a mind to that possibility. It's just something that they don't appreciate, they don't understand, and consequently to even have a conversation with one of my medical colleagues about heavy metals in the way that you have come to appreciate them is pretty much lost time. It never seems to get us anywhere because of the inability to appreciate and understand the role that these toxic substances play over the lifetime. You can't make it through a life without having the accumulation of heavy metals over time finally weighing in before the final bell sounds, so to speak, and you will absolutely pay a price for the heavy medical accumulation of a lifetime at some point. The diseases, the degenerative diseases of our aging experience are usually as a direct result of two phenomena. One, which we won't spend much time on today, which is the deficiencies that you've acquired over a lifetime, and they certainly need to be corrected, and this lays the groundwork so that people who have developed a good nutritional approach to their own health as well as supplementation regime are always trying to get back and even the score, because the lack of a appropriate set of nutrients will also have a payoff, and there will be a price to pay for not being able to supply the tissues with the adequate substances that they must have in order to function optimally. So the second side of the coin, besides having too little of something, is always the opposite, which would be having too much of something. And when those too much of somethings happen to come in the form of heavy metals, that burden over a long period of time and a lifetime, as we say, interferes with the normal metabolic processes of any organ, of any tissue, and that tissue is just not going to work well anymore. It's going to fail, and it's going to produce symptoms, many cases agonizing symptoms that will and can only be rectified once those metals are removed. So the enlightened group of doctors, ones who can have a conversation with a patient about those metals, have done so for many, many years now, and because of their enlightenment, have taken some pretty interesting steps to allow patients to be unburdened of their heavy metal experience. And when you think about the most prominent metals that I've usually detected, I'd have to say that the number one is lead, number two, mercury, number three, cadmium. Those are usually juxtapositioned in the 1, 2s, and 3 slots. 4 and beyond are many different metals. I'd have to say aluminum, quickly becoming another one that's absolutely high in quantity when we do the testing. And I guess that's the first bit of enlightenment of the non-conventional thinking doctor, is that at least they went to look for evidence of where these heavy metals were, because they obviously weren't in one place for sure. The only place that a conventional medical doctor thinks that the heavy metal would be present would be in the blood, and that would be a fatal mistake, because if there's one place that chronic heavy metal exposure is going to be unable to be discovered, is when one looks for the evidence of those metals in the blood itself. These metals don't hang out in the blood. These metals are taken up right within the matrix of human tissue almost immediately after exposure. They become intertwined and interwoven with the cellular structure of whatever tissue happens to be the target area of that metal. And once involved and bound up in that tissue, they're not coming out unless they're urged to do so. Now, the patient population, appreciating the fact that heavy metals are something that they should be trying to alleviate their burden of, oftentimes, and a very difficult set of circumstances, try to have conversations with their doctors about how they feel that heavy metals may be playing a role in the diseases that they happen to be getting treated for by those doctors. And this is usually a conversation that doesn't end up going too far because the doctor just doesn't and can't think on how heavy metals can be playing such a role. But if the patient is extremely persistent, finally the doctor may say, well, you know, you've been talking about this for so long. Why don't we just to keep you quiet, why don't we go ahead and order the blood test? There it comes, the blood test, to find out if in fact all this concern that you have is actually warranted or not. The mistake, of course, is that the doctor, who can only think in terms of the blood, orders the blood test, and when the blood test is returned and there is no evidence of any of those metals, because he can certainly request an assay of blood for any one of a myriad of metals, and when they come back completely negative, the doctor at that point feels very stick to it, I guess, maybe about insisting how, you see, I told you that this really couldn't be a problem for you. Now that we've gotten the blood test, maybe you'll get the message, and the conversation pretty much is then over, if it ever got that far to begin with. Of course, the tragic mistake is that the metal was never in the blood to begin with. It was taken up in the tissues, and we'll have to be able to remove that metal from the tissues in order to get unburdened at all. Now, the non-conventional doctor, the alternative doctor, the integrative, the functional, however it's now being said, doctor, is receptive to looking for and alleviating those metals, and has a number of agents to be able to do the unburdening. These are pharmaceutical substances. These are available by prescription only. They are very potent substances which will pull metals from the very tissues that they are found into the blood. And once in the blood, those metals can then pass themselves through the kidneys, and out of the body they go. And for now years, I'd have to say 60 years, the process of chelating heavy metals has been a standard practice and standard operation for the bulk of the alternative medical doctors in this country. It has been a bread and butter item. It has been one that I have been intimately tied to for the last 20 to 25 years. And probably, I have to say, to be honest, that the issue of chelation therapy, this process of removing these metals, was more than likely what intrigued me and was alluring to me to pull me out of the operating room as an anesthesiologist and move into the practice of alternative medicine as it has now become. So I felt myself to be very enlightened to be able to understand that heavy metals played a role in disease, and did my part, and very diligently did my part to help remove those metals over time. Now, it has remained pretty much as it was originally conceived, that these agents, which physicians could call upon to remove these metals, was pretty much the only way we thought it was possible to remove those metals. And because it was the only way, didn't even give it a second thought, continues to use these metals, and I believe in a way that with a second glance maybe should have been a tap onto the shoulder to figure out, can't there be another way other than using these very harsh, potentially very abrasive substances that have potentially a harm that come to patients who do utilize them. And so when I think about the big chelating agents of the pharmaceutical world, I think of something called EDTA. You may have heard of it. I think, by the way, when you get a set of left 4 letters, I think it's almost always is a chelating agent. DMSA, DMPS, these are the 3 most widely used forms of chelating agents. They are, in some cases, extremely precarious to use and should be used with a lot of care. And I'm not here to suggest to any doctor that is going to be prescribing them isn't going to use the care. But it does require some sensitive use of these substances in order to not to get in any difficulty or any trouble because of their use. But if I find out there's another way, and there, I believe, is the take-home message. If you're out there and you're thinking, geez, I never really did like the idea of chelating, utilizing, and many times this chelation was done intravenously. Sometimes it was done orally, sometimes IM, but the IV route is certainly one of the most widely used routes of administering these agents. And there needed to have been, and there certainly has been, care in making certain that no harm, little bits of harm, no harm at all should come to patients who are being chelated. But as we now find out, there is a way of removing these metals in a fashion that I refer to as natural chelation therapy. It's a new term. The person who introduced it to me never even thought of using the term natural chelation therapy. And of course, I'm talking about a gentleman by the name of Ed Kane, who's been utilizing an approach to removing heavy metals for over 30 years that seemingly never made it out of his own private library into the realm where we doctors could have learned about it. Anyway, Ed Kane, I believe, needs to be saluted for the ability to treat heavy metals in a natural form, one of the most unique new therapies out there that we utilize in this office almost per person as they come in, is his treatment of replacing all mineral deficiencies. And once doing that, the benefit of it is to remove all heavy metals. We call it natural chelation around here, and it's a testing / replacement of minerals that mobilize those metals to get rid of them, and do so with rapid rapidity, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. So I've laid the groundwork. I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, I'm going to walk you through how it is that we do our testing to find out how we're going to replace the minerals that you have lost. That's the key. That's something nobody was thinking about. In order to chelate out, you must put in. And after having put them in, talking about the minerals, you'll be able to remove the toxic substances with a great amount of ease and no difficulty and harm to come to you in the process. Anyway, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to pick up with part 2 of natural chelation as it can be done at home. You can do it right now with the right kit, that is, and you can take care of your own heavy metal issue as you always hoped you could do. Well, you can do it now. So be right back in a moment with part 2 of natural chelation. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health here in the Monday morning version of the show. We've also allowed you to come on in here if you got a mind to this at the agenda, as you might say it. Of course, you do so by dialing us up at 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. I'll listen for that knock on the door, and I will let you in the store. I'm going to pick up now in the practical use of these minerals and how they can lead to natural chelation therapy. I believe is our newest go-to testing that we do in the office almost as each new patient comes in. It all starts, of course, with utilizing the Ed Kane mineral kits. Now, there is a set of 8 minerals, 9 if you include iodine. And to tell you the truth, iodine, if you are from Western Pennsylvania, probably never needs to be tested at all. Remember, if you're from Western Pennsylvania, you are born and raised smack dab in the middle of something called the goiter belt. It's not garter belt, that's goiter belt. And the reason that that's so is that it just so happens that our soils in Western Pennsylvania and surrounding areas have absolutely and positively no iodine whatsoever in the soil. And so consequently, if you have any deficiency at all as a Western Pennsylvania child being raised in this area, you absolutely and positively have an iodine deficiency. So if we can just take that one out and reduce it to the next of the 8 minerals in the testing kit, you can understand how the total is 9, but iodine's an automatic. Everybody needs to be put on iodine without even a question. Now, the rest of the metals goes like this. They are, number 1, potassium. Number 2, zinc. Number 3, magnesium. Number 4, copper. Number 5, chromium. Number 6, manganese. Number 7, tricky one, molybdenum. That's actually the name of a mineral. It really truly is an element. And number 8 is selenium. 8 minerals that more than likely are minerals that you have a deficiency of. As it turns out, it's because of your mineral deficiency that you are hanging on to heavy metals that until you correct the minerals, you can't get rid of. Now let's take that first step. And let's talk about how we find out what minerals you need. Mr. Edward Kane has worked up a pretty unique way of doing it. There's a taste test. There are 8 taste testing vials, and all you do is put a small, let's just say 1 milliliter, just enough to cover the bottom of a small cup. And I'm talking about a tiny shot glass kind of a cup, sort of the kind that comes with medicines anyway. And so what you do is you take a taste of all 8 of those minerals in order, and as you taste each and every one, you're given the opportunity to grade your response with 7 possible responses. They are, and you'll use these numbers based on what you taste. So the taste test goes like this. You might taste any one of those 8 minerals as something very sweet to the taste. If so, you would number that a 1. A 2 would be a pleasant taste. A 3 would be no taste. A number 4, Ed calls it, I taste something. A number 5 is so-so. Number 6 is don't like it. Number 7 is pretty bad. 7 possible responses. They'll differ from individual to individual. You taste them, you rate them, and you write down your responses off to the side after you've dated your first test, and usually that's the first day you're in the office with me, because we'll take the time. Only takes about 5 minutes to go through all these metals, and we write down what metals you are tasting and to what level you're tasting them. Now, let's just say that there's 7 possible taste responses. The first 3 we'll have to put on the pleasant side, sweet, pleasant, and no taste. And the last 3 we'll put on the unpleasant side in so-called categories of so-so, don't like, and pretty bad. And the number 4 score is right smack dab in the middle, where the person says, I taste something. It's not really good, it's not really bad. I just taste something. And so with those possible tests results that you can ascribe to each one of the metals, when you get done, here's what you've learned. If you've graded one of these metals as a 1, a 2, or a 3, what you're really saying is you need that metal, and you need it bad. By the way, if you have a very sweet tasting metal. You really need that metal a lot. If it's just pleasant, well, you need it, but maybe not that much. And if there's no taste, it means that you still need the metal, but probably with very minimal effort could get to the point where you had enough of it. On the other side of the equation, for you to be tasting any of these minerals in a negative connotation, and if essentially if you said, God, that's terrible tasting, what your body is really telling you is that you have way too much of that mineral. That's a mineral that you don't have to take at all and shouldn't take because you got plenty of it. If you test right in the middle with this, I'm tasting something, that's the score you're going for ultimately. But on day one, once you do the testing, you now have 8 minerals that you've sampled. You were able to determine what the taste was for all 8 of them. You've numbered the score for how you responded, and they're now recorded. Once they're done, we start the replacement. Now, how do you replace? Well, according to Mr. Edward Kane, the way you replace it is that you take and make a mineral drink, a super mineral drink, twice a day, and this is how you mix them. If you have tested in a range of a 1, a 2, or a 3, you're going to do triple dosing of that mineral twice a day. Now, what I mean by dose is each one of the minerals, and I'm looking at my reagents in front of me right now. Let's take that potassium. Turns out that a dose of potassium, as graded by Ed, is 13 drops. And if you're going to use a triple dose, that would be 39 drops. So if you tasted with sweet, pleasant, or no taste, you would be, in your mineral drink, mixing up 39 drops of potassium. What about zinc? Zinc has a dose of 7 drops. And if you tasted very sweet, pleasant, or no taste, a triple dose would be 21 drops. And so it moves on with copper dose of 4 drops, with a magnesium dose of 10 drops, a manganese dose of 7 drops, a chromium dose of 5 drops, a molybdenum dose of 3, and finally a selenium dose of 3. Based on knowing what a single dose was, if you've scored a 1, 2, or 3, you're going to be mixing in your mineral drink triple dosing if the rating was 1, 2, or 3. If the rating was a 4, you only take a single dose of that particular mineral. And if you rated any of those minerals at 5, 6, or 7, well, you just don't take any at all. Now, you'll start to take those minerals twice a day, every day, and each and every week you will retest. And what you'll see happening is, as time moves on, sometimes rather rapidly, other times maybe taking a few weeks, if not even months, you'll begin to change how you taste every one of these. Because as it works out in nature, your body is letting you know if something tastes extremely sweet and good to you, that's something that you need in the way of the minerals. And if it's something that's very pungent to your taste, that's something you should avoid. It's just the way nature works. It's the way all grazing animals work. And whether we're talking about wild or domesticated even, when it comes to grazing, these animals aren't doing a heavy metal challenge each and every year to find out what they need and what they don't need. Their body talks to them each and every day out there as their nose is right down in the stuff, and they're able, because of the communication between nature and themselves, to know what it is that they should be taking and what it is that they shouldn't. Same thing holds true for the human being. Another one of nature's wonders, and your body too will tell you whether you need minerals or not, and whether you are going to get them in an adequate form or not. So that's the testing part. That's the part that we start with, and that's the part that allows you to begin to replace your minerals literally on the same day. And we find so many people that are so low in these minerals. In many cases, by the way, I've often listened to them as they are looking at the test that we're doing on each particular one, and they'll say, "Oh, I supplement this one a lot. I'm already taking a lot of this." And then when we find out they're still lacking a lot of that mineral, it has been very revealing to me that just because you're supplementing and the level of supplementation is minuscule, you're never going to make up the loss that you have in the small amount that you're taking in the supplement that you're taking each and every day. You're going to have to replace these minerals specifically. Okay. So when you start to replace these minerals, let's get to the second half of this phenomenon. One is to replace the minerals that are being lost. This requires the discussion of a protein in the body. The protein is called metallothionein, and it's a very interesting protein because metallothionein acts as a transporter of all of your healthy minerals, all of them. And there's a receptor site that is anxiously awaiting to be occupied by all the minerals. If you don't supply the minerals in the appropriate amounts through your lifetime and are not able to occupy the site on metallothionein for the good mineral that you should be taking, what happens is the metallothionein becomes occupied with a heavy metal. And now you got double trouble. You don't have the mineral that you should, and you're beginning to accumulate a metal that you shouldn't. And this continues to be a never-ending process. You'll continue to get more and more toxic burden because of the heavy metal that you're holding on to, and you're absolutely lacking the benefit of having the appropriate minerals able to exert their influence on the metabolic processes in your body. Now, as we're coming into the home stretch, what happens as you replace those minerals is that you will literally knock off the heavy metal occupying the site of where the mineral should be, and once the mineral is able to reconnect with the metallothionein that it should be occupying, that's when you knock off the heavy metal and you begin your natural chelation process over time. Ultimately, when you've replaced all your minerals, you have jettisoned and removed all of the heavy metals, and you've done so without the need of any harsh pharmaceutical agent over time. I admit that in its day, it was as good as it got, but it just got better. And now we're able to help people without putting them in any situation where they could get into any harm whatsoever with those pharmaceutical substances. So, natural chelation, folks, is alive and well and surviving very nicely in this office. Come on in. We'll get you started with your mineral testing, and a kit will be delivered to your front door the very next day and let you get going on what you always wanted to do, but maybe we're hesitant because you just naturally said, you know, I think I want to do that drug. Turns out you don't have to at all. Thank you. Hey, we got a knock on the door. I hope they're still out there. Come on this door. Hello, welcome aboard. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Dr. Courtney.
Hi.
Hey, you were just talking about the bitter taste of whatever minerals you're tasting.
They could be bitter.
The bottom of a little shot glass and tastes real bitter. Let's say you experience that real bitter taste, and let's say you're going through your 8 minerals as you were just saying. Do you excuse me, do you do something between each taste? Let's say you get a real bitter taste. Do you do something to neutralize the bitterness in your mouth before you check the next mineral?
I had people ask me that, what should I do? Should I take a sip of water? I said, no, absolutely not. Now, the taste that you'll generate is able to be recognized if you've just had a pungent substance put in your mouth and you go, oh, that's terrible. I've watched people in the very next sip tell me, oh, no, this next one here, this is rather sweet. So I've learned over time, and certainly talked to Ed about this, it doesn't appear that you need to take a pause or do anything. That even if something is pungent tasting one time, and then the next thing that you are going to take is pleasant tasting, you're able to get the pleasant taste from it without doing anything special.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Heavy metal testing is a unique way of letting your body talk to you in a way that you really always intuitively knew that your body could communicate with you like that. Turns out it's a fantastic way to communicate. I also want to tell you that I took this heavy metal testing kit on a conference that I went to, Top Doc conference, the Chelation Top Doc conference. It was held in St. Petersburg, Florida, back there. It was in March. It was in March of this year. And one of my very good friends, Robin Sika, who's been an alternative medicine doctor for years, certainly is a girl who walks the walk and talks the talk. She's supplemented as much as anybody ever has. And so she was the ideal person, I thought, that I'd love to test. And she had never heard of this kind of testing before, so she was more than she was ready to play. So she stepped up and we started to do her testing. Now, of the 8 minerals that we tested, 7 of them literally gagged her. It was just one terrible, wicked taste after another, after another, after another. But it matched up so perfectly to somebody that I know as a literally walking, talking advertisement for how one should supplement and make certain that they've met all of their deficiency requirements. Well, Dr. Seek had been working in this realm for 20 years herself, and there she was demonstrating by virtue of her own taste mechanism how she didn't need any stinking metal at all. In fact, I think I haven't had anybody test like her since, and more than likely probably don't expect anybody in the future to do as well. She is as good as it gets, at least that's how I look at it. One final little note I'll make about this thing with the metals, and I think it's a nice little closing off point. We started our cataract clinic last month, and as you know, we've been using the Dr. Ed Conrad program for years, and I haven't been really happy with, nor has Dr. Conrad been happy with how well the Ed Conrad program has worked for the treating of the cataracts. Worked extremely well for the retinal diseases, but never to the same degree with treating cataracts. So last month, when we decided to have our first cataract program, we used the Ed Conrad frequency-specific microcurrent device. We teamed that up with the Beamer, and you heard me talk about the Beamer, a PEMF device. Of course, a PEMF stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Therapy, and the Beamer is a device that allows us to harness that form of energy therapy. And we had an outstanding result, as you should now know, and as I reported to you, literally as it was unfolding last month. Now, I couldn't wait to call Dr. Ed Conrad, a personal friend of mine, as well as a great mentor of mine, to let him know how well that all went, and how literally, with the few patients who had cataracts, every one of them had a tremendous turnaround in their cataracts. So he asked me, he said, hey, what are you doing? And so I said, well, I'm using your frequency-specific microcurrent program. And he wasn't surprised. I thought I was going to pull it on him and said, and by the way, this beamer, outstanding device. We've utilized at this particular seminar and 4-day program. And he said, well, you know what? He goes, I do the exact same thing. I use the beamer and I use the frequency-specific microcurrent, and I'm not getting the kind of results that you claim that you got with your patients. And so I thought for a moment, and I thought for a moment, and then the light went off. I went, Ed, it's those minerals. You haven't used the minerals. And his light went off. And he said, are you talking about the Edward Kane minerals? Those minerals that you demonstrated to us when you were at the Top Doc conference in St. Petersburg, Florida? I said, those are the ones. I said, we used those on day one. In the first hour of day one, we tested every patient. We got them started taking their mineral drink. And Ed, if you're telling me you're not getting the results with the beamer and the frequency-specific device, the only thing different was the minerals. That's got to be the key. And I swear, I believe, it would let everything else do its job much better. I believe the beamer did what the beamer did. I believe that the frequency-specific microcurrent does what it does. But when you're able to mobilize the minerals and mobilize the metals, all of those therapies have an enhanced performance in the human body as opposed to a dampened performance if you don't have those minerals and those metals able to move around. A whole new approach is burgeoned. I'm happy to have reported it to you today. More on this as time moves on. Look forward to seeing you in my office. We'll test you just like we've tested everybody else. I'll keep you informed as the up-and-coming cataract clinics go by. I want you to have a wonderful day today. Look forward to Wednesday when Dr. David Minkoff is going to be our guest talking about Lyme's disease. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.